Welcome to Business Digest Radio, Southern Colorado's source for business, policy, economics, workforce, and innovation. Brought to you by Colorado Media Group. Here's your host, Dirk Hobbs.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Business Digest Radio. I am your host, Dirk Hobbs, and I am so glad you are with us. It is another end of a great week here in Southern Colorado. Lots of business news and economic development news throughout the region. So if you're new to the program, we cover somewhere between Douglas County and Trinidad, Canyon City to Kansas, and all things economic development, business, economics, everything. So today is no exception. We have a fantastic guest in the studio with me today. We're going to get to know him and some of his experience. So if you're in the any business, frankly, and you want to understand some of the fundamentals of marketing and sales and how all that works together, this is a great conversation for you to listen to. This guy's been a senior executive at some very impressive organizations around the world, and he has gotten a lot of t-shirts, if you know what I mean, in terms of understanding how powerful marketing can be. So this isn't a frivolous conversation. This is one of the fundamental disciplines within business. Obviously, your financial house has to be in order. Your human resource house has to be in order. But, and then whatever you're doing, service, product, all that stuff has to be the best that your organization is capable of delivering. But how do you get it out there? How do you get people to differentiate you? How do you strategize and build consumer loyalty, or what they call CP value, competitive positioning value? Learned a lot about that in my NASCAR days, but I've utilized it in every aspect, in every client, in every occupation that I've had. And once you understand some of these fundamentals, you can go back to your marketing staff and teams and talk to them on a level that helps the whole organization rise to a new level in terms of messaging, positioning, branding, all of the components, and how that ties into sales and relationship marketing and all those other things that we like to consider along the way. So as we'll learn, marketing has a tremendous number of different disciplines within it, one of those being creative and the sales function itself. So stick with us. This is going to be a rich conversation, especially for business owners and executives. And we're going to get some real meat and potatoes here to take back to our organizations and really get a sense for how to deploy those strategies. So our Best in Business is underway. The voting has opened up, and I'm excited to announce that we have 10 groups, and these groups each contain a number of different selection items. So there's 90 categories, I think 89 officially, categories. And this is a very rich voting Best in Business series. So we're not doing things on a kind of a superficial level. I know previous encounters with this have shown, what's the best employee parking lot or the best employee gym and things like that. All those things are nice. That is not what this is about. These are about high producing organizations, folks that have broken through early stage or incubation stage and have accelerated into business on their own steam. Organizations that are funded in a myriad of categories. So we have aerospace companies as big as Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and Boeing in there. And we also have companies as small as a retail shop here in Southern Colorado anywhere. So it also covers from Douglas County south to Trinidad. So we're going to get a lot of coverage out of this. And we want you to take a look. You go to vote.socodigest.com. And you'll be presented with an opportunity to vote at least 5 times, but upwards of 90 times for the businesses you believe are best in business. And then we're going to have a celebration on September 24th. It's Colorado Springs City Hub. It's going to be a fun afternoon. We'll have a business expo with some keynote speakers, very short micro presentations, like 15 minutes, where they give you a little taste of what they're doing and how you can get involved. And then we're going to go into the awards banquet where we will celebrate Community Choice Awards of 25 categories of people that have been nominated in the Best in Business. So really fun event. And it's a great little marquee to have out there. So we want to encourage everybody to vote and vote often. We're anticipating upwards of over 10,000 votes this year. So vote.socodigest.com. Well, let's get to business, shall we? We have a good friend of mine and a visitor here who's come from UCCS to have this conversation about all things marketing and sales. And I want to welcome Paul Yankey to the studio. Glad you're here, sir.
Thank you, Dirk. Glad to be here.
Really glad you're here, man. What I like to do, Paul, is I like to give our audience a little bit of background on you, let you talk about your story and your journey to Colorado Springs. So let's start with your background and where you come from.
Dirk, one thing I'd say is I spent 30 years working for some of the most successful companies of our day. Dell, Cisco, Salesforce, and startups really at every stage. And along those paths, I've seen great success, and I've also seen highly talented people that I know well fail. And it wasn't so much that they didn't know what to do. It was more that they didn't know who they were.
Interesting. Okay. We're going to have to unpack that in Q2 and 3 because I think I know where you're going with that, but I want to hear you say it. So you started in Southern California. Is that your origin story? Where's your origin story?
I'm born in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
In Detroit.
Not Southern California.
Grew up in Long Island, New York.
Okay.
That's really where I think of the home years. That's where I spent high school years and what have you.
Got it.
And I went to college in Los Angeles.
That's how I got the Southern California thing.
And was there for some time. And then I moved to the Silicon Valley area after college. And then one of the companies I worked for, that particular company was Cisco Systems. They moved me out here with a promotion. And that was 27 years ago.
Very good. And how did you connect with the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs?
About 8.5 years ago, I actually had a passion to get a company started that was helping elderly people with their technology. So this was going to their homes, helping them with getting things set up, that type nature. And I was getting this together and I was finding myself wanting help and reaching out to people that I knew that could help, advisors, things of that nature. And along the way, I learned of the Bachelor of Innovation at UCCS, and they had a student consult group. And so I joined that. I was approved, I was brought in, and I worked with them, and that had some value. And through that process, Colleen Stiles, Dr. Colleen Stiles was one of the teachers, and Dr. Nina Polak was the leader of the Bachelor of Innovation program at the time. And they recognized that I had a pretty good rapport with students.
Okay.
And had asked me, Paul, have you ever thought of teaching? Now, I hadn't a great deal, but I said I would find that interesting to give a try. So I did that, and I taught with Colleen Stiles, and I just came alive to see that I could share life experiences. And I'm not shy about sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly of my life experiences, and to see that that could be some type of a help, some type of an inspiring motivation for students. It just really was exciting to do. And so I did adjunct, and then I was made full-time the semester after that, and did that for some time. And then some of my work commitments had me more in Southeast Asia, which this was pre-COVID. So there wasn't as much of a rich online learning platform. So I separated some from my official teaching capacity with the university and started being a part more of some committees and things like they had with their Shark Tank, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
And then came back, and this was now about 4.5, 5 years ago. There's a story to that, but started again with the university for one semester as adjunct, and they asked me to be their marketing person for education.
For curriculum. Yeah, very good. So I learned from you in our pregame, there's kind of 3 layers of teaching over there. Or is that at any university? Just, kind of those 3 levels.
I would say to you, I'm not an academic, so I'm new to some of this structural aspect of how universities are set up. But yes, in general terms, I've learned this is pretty standard. There's tenure track or tenured as the highest level, if you will, of professor. Then there's different names for it, but ultimately it's a person that's been experienced in the field that's hired as a full-time faculty member.
Got it.
At UCCS.
And that's where you were.
That's where I was.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where I was. And then after that is adjunct and lecturers.
Okay. And most of those, if not all of them, have to have at least master's degrees. Of course, the tenured professorships have to have PhDs and all that stuff. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Yeah. For those of you who don't know the academic world, like myself, that might be a little nugget to take away. So when did you started 8 years ago?
Thereabouts, yeah. 8.5. I'd have to think about it more specifically, but.
Yep. And what was your perception of students and their comprehension of marketing, and then from the beginning of their time with you versus the end of their time with you?
Well, one thing worth mentioning is it has changed and evolved over time.
No question.
I think the students that I'm talking to today are different than the students I was talking to 8 years ago.
Fair.
And we can all imagine many reasons of why that is.
Yeah.
That said, there's a continual perception that advertising is what marketing is. And that's what it is. You know,
right.
The terms are interchangeable. Mm-hmm. And then if you ask further, say, where does sales fit into that? There's kind of a blank stare in some aspects. So that's generally what folks are coming in with the thinking of. And so very quickly we're able to say, okay, let's talk about this holistically. What is marketing? Because marketing's a lot. So I graduated with a degree in finance and worked in finance for a while and immensely value that experience, what it taught me about reading a P&L, reading a balance sheet, understanding the momentum of a business. And I so am thankful for that experience. But I also knew that I was much more geared towards finding ways to get the message out. And more importantly, perhaps, to understand what it was that needs were. Mm-hmm. And that definitely took me to marketing. Also, I'm generally speaking pretty comfortable with meeting people. Mm-hmm. And I won't be shy to say I welcome earning money.
Yeah.
And when I was living in Silicon Valley, it didn't take long to have it become pretty apparent that if you want to be engaging a lot with people and if you want to be making some attractive money, that was in the area of sales.
Yes, so, always is. Yep.
So that's what took me there. And boy, I'll tell you, my first job was for a company called Silicon Graphics, later became known as SGI. It was a player in the day.
Okay.
And to say my role, I was an inside salesperson covering Southern New England. Needed to be at work at 5 a.m. every day when I lived on the West Coast, which I liked actually. But to say I drank from the fire hose is an understatement. I did not know much about technology, and so I learned about a lot of that very quickly. Yeah, and I moved on from there.
Well, Paul, when we come back, I want to do a really substantial dive into some of the mechanics of marketing, right? I want to talk to the executives and business owners in the room about how to create a position in their organization for a marketing director or a VP or a chief marketing officer, whatever that is, and what the expectations should be, what that person should be able to lend assistance to as it relates to their P&L and the success of their business, because I know you've drawn those lines a lot in your career. So stick around, folks. We're back with author and speaker and instructor here in Colorado Springs, Paul Yankey, in just a moment.
It isn't easy to learn every turn, to trust instinct over doubt, to keep control on the edge. It isn't easy to stare down history. Whoever said we wanted easy? We came for glory. The Broadmoor Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, presented by Gran Turismo. 156 turns to glory. Be there when we chase it.
Leonard Skinnard. Live. Saturday, September 19th, Ford Amphitheater. With special guest 38 Special. On sale Friday, 10 a.m. at leonardskinnard.com. Leonard Skinnard. Live. Produced by AEG Presents.
Basket Catering Collective. Call or find us online.
Pain doesn't just announce itself, it changes how you move. And when movement changes, everything else follows. That's when experience and coordination matters most. Dr. Craig Yeager, orthopedic sports medicine surgeon here at Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, board-certified, fellowship-trained specialists treat the full orthopedic picture from head to toe. With our walk-in express care, advanced MRI and CT imaging, and physical therapy at 2 full-service locations, your care stays connected. Schedule today. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, because movement isn't optional, it's personal.
One thing I can guarantee you never thought about as a small business owner: podcasts are way more important than you realize. One 30-minute podcast session could create over 50 pieces of content across all your platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Reels, Stories, Shorts. Transcribe that podcast. Now you got newsletters, blog posts, client resources, website copy, and that's all from one conversation, potentially solving all your visibility issues. Top of mind beats top of skill. And it's not even close. You show up ready for a conversation, and we handle literally everything else. That's months of content, visibility solved, and stress gone. Book your first session at treehousecw.com.
All right, welcome to the second quarter Business Digest Radio. I'm your host, Dirk Hobbs. Hey, I want to do a quick shout out with gratitude to our sponsors, the folks at Venue, who own the Ford Amphitheater, are helping to underwrite this program. Our good friends at Cansano Italian Grill, and same owners that have Prime 25 in 2 locations here in Colorado Springs. Our good friends over at the Picnic Basket Catering Collective. Chances are, if you've been to any business event, you've eaten at their table. And then our good friends over at the Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group. So because those folks come in and help us underwrite this program, we get to buy the airtime, and then of course we get to broadcast this all over Southern Colorado. And actually, the Business Digest Radio is getting the attention of listeners and viewers outside the region, because what's happening, folks, is because Colorado Springs, Douglas County, Pueblo County are really emerging markets in many ways. And this is very exciting. And because those 3 counties, which are joined, share a border, they are evolving as well as other counties around the region. So a lot of boats are rising on this higher tide, and a lot of it stems from our industry sectors around aerospace, defense, cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, and a number of other industry sectors, including hospitality and tourism, higher education, and attractions, things that bring us back over and over again. So there's some exciting things happening in the region, and folks that are looking to plant their flag in Colorado are starting to take another listen, in part because there's a new election cycle coming up, and the business posture of Colorado has frankly not been very favorable over the last 5 years. It has just been very difficult, administrative burdens, legislative burdens, and we're starting to feel a relinquishment of that so that business and industry can thrive in this region. So that is in part, in addition to our economic development experts up and down the Front Range, our OEdit, and other business leaders who are coming to the table, pushing back on overindulgence on the legislature and letting them run wild. So we have a voice in this, and we can control our ability to make this a very business-friendly environment. And that's what we're here to do. And we're here to broadcast that, share those stories, share the intellectual property that's in the region as well, and show that we are doing some pretty extraordinary things here. Project Taurus continues to make momentum in the community. This is the data center conversation, and I encourage everybody, if you want to understand this conversation more on its merits rather than the hype and the hypothesis that are out there, I encourage you to go to socodigest.com. Also check in with the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC. They have a lot of good information, but Radon continues to make progress with City Council and the County Commission and that property on Garden of the Gods. So it's all good, folks. There's still a lot of questions, and a lot of those questions are good, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Let's handle this well. And of course, the PAE, program that's coming here to Southern Colorado, which Congressman Jeff Crank helped bring to bear. This is an exciting thing. It's attaching itself to the Schriever Air Force Base, and it's going to be an exciting program. About 2,500 jobs, civilian jobs, are coming into this, and about $4 billion in asset management is going to go through this, and it's really exciting, folks. So this may be the first of many that are coming into the region. So anyway, stick around. Lots of good things happening around here. We have author, speaker, and instructor at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, Paul Yankey, across the board from me. And we're talking to our owners, operators, and executives who are responsible for their organizations about marketing and what we really need to understand about the role of marketing in our organizations, the role of marketing in our financial picture and perspectives, and of course, sales. Paul, glad you're here, brother.
Thank you, Dirk.
Yeah, thanks for indulging that little segue there. But I want to turn the rest of this time over to you and really let you run here a little bit. I'm an executive. I'm a business owner, operator, whether it's 5 people or 500 people. I've got marketing personnel in my company, or I'm contracting those services. As I am hiring or contracting those people, what are some of the things that I need to be asking them in terms of their core competencies and understanding of the role of strategic and tactical marketing, and help them understand really what that conversation needs to look like?
Marketing is one of the most exciting and invigorating areas of business. It's also one that is the most powerful as far as influencing both the business and how it approaches engaging with customers. So the textbook that I wrote that I use in my classes is entitled Listen, Understand, Captivate. And I think that's an essential aspect to stop and just take in for a moment. A key part of marketing is beyond the thoughts of it being advertising or it being selling, things of that nature. It starts at its core fundamentals of understanding your market, not thinking you automatically know what it is. And a great deal can be done to help with that. Marketing research, and certainly in our day in AI, marketing research is now magnitudes easier to be accomplished. As with anything, you always need to validate and make sure you're looking at accurate information. And I always encourage doing that with maybe a few different LLM models to make sure you're cross-triangulating data points. But I think that's the piece that is the most maybe misunderstood, is the value of understanding and taking the time to certainly recognize what your business does and what it doesn't do. And what is the market? And are you fulfilling what they really want? And then you have to ask yourself the question of, do you evolve or do you change your focus of who you're going after?
Okay.
And that to me these are the big pieces on the chessboard, if you will. And they're often overlooked. And so someone will jump in today and say, oh, I've got to get on social media, or I need to engage with an agency to help me. And agencies, my goodness, they've done a great job over time. And they've certainly brought a lot of businesses to be successful and to get the word out in traditional ways. And we even chatted a little bit before about search engine optimization and how that was a way to make sure that your website or your web traffic got more attention than maybe it was worth having.
Right.
There was an element of manipulation to it.
That's correct.
And you know what? It's been interesting with the outpouring of artificial intelligence, how I would even make the statement, I think there's much more of a transparency that's happening. And there's actually, you're being held accountable to the truth more. Your story needs to be consistent all across the board. And that's then in turn how you show up in AI searches. So the days of being able to manipulate things with SEO, I think, are very quickly going away. They're still present. They're still present. Yeah. But that's, and my approach with anyone that I work with is I always want you to be going where the puck is going, not where it is. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes down to engaging with an agency today or a professional or people inside your own business, I would ask the question of who is our customer and why? And they need to be able to give an answer to that. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, okay, I understand that, but it's like, we need to know that answer.
Yeah.
And take me through how you're going to find that answer. And there are very specific ways to go about finding that out, whether it be interviews, whether it be the classic doing a focus group. These things still have immense value. And I would make the statement that the more that you can truly qualitatively engage with your customer, meaning not just looking at survey results, because surveys have gotten to the point where they can be so manipulated, possibly, or they can be, somebody's just wanting to get through the survey to get the prize,
right,
or whatever the case may be. And there's, my goodness, data still supports that there can be some value to that. But secondary data, meaning surveys and analysis that's already been done, that's publicly available. Usually I say publicly available. Sometimes you have to pay dearly for it. But there's a lot of information out there that we all have access to or can pay for. And a lot of that can be accessed through AI channels. And you can start to at least, I think AI is an excellent tool to ideate, but you also then want to do a sanity test.
I appreciate that statement more than you know.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good. But you want to make sure that you're really validating things. So you form a thesis. Marketing's all about a thesis. You come up with a thought, an idea. I think this, so therefore we're going to do this. And that's great. And one of the most pure ways to do it is just to do it and see what happens, which I've done in my career. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's worked out well, sometimes it hasn't. But you actually have a lot of tools at your ready that you can do some deeper diving into and make more of let's call it an educated guess. People don't like to call it a guess, but I still think at some point you're guessing, and you're trying to make the best calls that you can with the information you have. But you now have at your access so much more information so easily than you ever did before. I think it behooves all of us to make sure we're taking that time to find out what is really the data saying.
Do you subscribe to a multi-pronged outbound marketing effort? Because a lot of companies have been convinced either by agencies or their internal marketing folks that the only answer is digital. Okay. Now, some verticals that may apply, but there's others. There's billboards, there's events, there's, collaborative partnerships. Of course, there's media. But what do you say to that kind of unilateral thinking?
It scares me.
Okay.
Actually, because it's not accurate. And it's just, if you will, what's the analogy of, just throwing something to just throwing a blanket to cover the issue.
Okay.
Is maybe a way to say it. There is value in being precise, and there's value in being specific about engaging with your customers that you've now come to figure out who they are through your understanding in a way that's focused and that they want. So a lot of my career was in selling. Now, this will throw some people, okay? But I started to have a whole lot of success when I would meet with customers and I would ask them, how do you want me to sell to you?
Interesting. Okay. Yes.
I had many people advise me, oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
You know what? I did it. And once I established a level of trust, which I'm already at the place of, I can do that quickly with customers because I do care for them. And they feel that very quickly. That being said, oftentimes they would tell me.
That's interesting. Yeah. Sell me on the benefits, sell me on the value proposition, or bottom liners. How's this going to make me richer or our company more profitable? That's interesting because I had a friend of mine back in the day. He was very similar in his transactional with new people across the board from him. And he'd say, he called it disarmingly honest. How do you want me to sell to you? And it worked.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of my ethos is I work with a lot of people, and even had a professor recently want to co-write a book, and they were wanting to write it on sales tactics. And as we got more into it, I recognized I'm like, they're just wanting to talk about some of these, I'll even say manipulative aspects. And I'm like, that doesn't interest me. I'm like, short term, you can do that and you can make successes. That is true. And as a seller, as a marketer, you do have power.
Yeah.
And that's a piece that not everybody always realizes. But you do have the ability to influence other people.
Correct.
And
if you're paying attention and you're reading the market and you're doing your homework, because a lot of them don't, they just bring a skill set and they execute, and the companies burn through $500,000 of a lot of nothing. So when we come back, we're going to talk about that team, your internal team or your contracted external team, and the expectations you can put upon them. We're also going to talk about this book here called Free, and understanding what Paul means around that topic. So as it relates to your business, but I'm loving this conversation. I'm a marketing geek, so I really appreciate you being here, Paul. So stick around, folks. When we come back, we'll dive into those topics and more.
It isn't easy to learn every turn, to trust instinct over doubt, to keep control on the edge. It isn't easy to stare down history. Whoever said we want it easy? We came for glory. The Broadmoor Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, presented by Gran Turismo. 156 turns to glory. Be there when we chase it.
Leonard Skinnard. Live. Saturday, September 19th, Ford Amphitheater. With special guest 38 Special. On sale Friday, 10 a.m. at leonardskinnard.com. Leonard Skinnard. Live. Produced by AEG Presents.
Picnic Basket Catering Collective. Call or find us online.
Pain doesn't just announce itself, it changes how you move. And when movement changes, everything else follows. That's when experience and coordination matters most. Dr. Craig Yeager, orthopedic sports medicine surgeon here at Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, board-certified, fellowship-trained specialists treat the full orthopedic picture from head to toe. With our walk-in express care, advanced MRI and CT imaging, and physical therapy at 2 full-service locations, your care stays connected. Schedule today. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, because movement isn't optional, it's personal.
One thing I can guarantee you never thought about as a small business owner: podcasts are way more important than you realize. One 30-minute podcast session could create over 50 pieces of content across all your platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Reels, Stories, Shorts. Transcribe that podcast. Now you got newsletters, blog posts, client resources, website copy, and that's all from one conversation, potentially solving all your visibility issues. Top of mind beats top of skill. And it's not even close. You show up ready for a conversation, and we handle literally everything else. That's months of content, visibility solved, and stress gone. Book your first session at treehousecw.com.
All right, we're back here, third quarter on Business Digest Radio. I'm really glad you're with us. And if you're an owner, operator, entrepreneur, starting out, chief executive officer for 50 years, you want to lean into this conversation. I have a very strong kindred spirit across the board from me, Paul Yankey. He is an instructor at UCCS, and he runs the marketing program there. In addition to that, he's also an author and a speaker, and he has earned every T-shirt and hat he's collected over the years in terms of being with some of the top brands in the world, including Cisco and Dell and others like it. So it is an extraordinary pleasure to have you in the studio, Paul. Glad you're here, man.
thank you, Dirk.
Appreciate you being here. All right. So in the second quarter, executives, we talked about your ability to interview and discern and vet marketing and communications and sales personnel, mostly on the marketing side, because that marketing individual is going to drive a lot of that comm and a lot of those sales, and the relationship we need to have between the marketing person, whether it's a director, manager, or a chief marketing officer, and the financial corner of the offices so that they understand all of how the business is running and what they need to achieve in terms of what finance needs to achieve, as well as product and service development and other things. So this is often almost an underqualified or an understated the significance of that hire or that contract with that agency or that marketing firm. They get flooded with all of the creative things they can do, but does that make sense for your business? So help our listeners and viewers understand some of the thought processes, Paul, from your chair and experience at some of these huge companies, global companies, where you have the ability to position your organization to meet the demands and the wants and the needs of their clients. Because the build it and they will come days are far and few between.
Well, let's first address a real reality. We're not talking about Coca-Cola or Dell or IBM in the context of our marketing budgets.
True.
We're talking about businesses that are, let's just say, a much more conservative budget to work with.
Fair.
So that's going to be a real leader about what direction you're going to go with. Because sure, you can make the case that, oh, hey, we can spend $1 million to do this and get the name out. And you might be able to. But do you have $1 million?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
And more often than not, I talk to folks and they don't. But then you even got to ask yourself, well, what is smart? What is smart for us to spend? Say you have a going entity. You're making profit. How much of your revenues do you want to spend on marketing? Now, there's formulaic answers to that, which anybody can look up, even looking at AI. But to me, I'd ask, what is your objective? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you in growth mode? Are you in profitability maximization mode?
Excellent.
Those things are all very relevant. So what the larger companies I worked with, it was very, very common that come towards the end of the quarter, being public companies, they always wanted to make sure to make their numbers. And so we would get the directives at times to make business happen by, let's call it selling the business more, because we give bigger discounts.
Fair.
And that was a direct directive from finance. Mm-hmm. And that was the correlation that existed there. And it would be really helpful, and it's very helpful a lot of times, to have marketing have a direct link communicating with finance to understand what it is their objectives are, what are their goals, what are the challenges or needs or opportunities for the company, and how can marketing best support that. So marketing is not always this island off on its own, as people sometimes think.
Which it's often treated as. Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it needs to be, I mean, we live in this world and day where we have this idea of finance, of marketing, of accounting, of HR and all that. But the healthy companies that I've been a part of are the ones where they actually talk together.
Yeah, they're all integrated.
Yeah. I mean, we come up with these ways to divide them, but they're all integrated. They all relate to each other. And the more there's harmony, communication, understanding of their respective needs, that's when magic can happen. And finance and marketing are two of the most directly connected, because marketing is going to influence the top line and then ultimately the bottom line that finance then has to contend with and make sure they're meeting all their financial obligations, their payroll, all those things that come up. So it can be, I was going to say complex, but it's actually not complex. It's just more of a, we need to make sure we're aligned in the goals and directives of the company. Now you got to ask yourself, do you want to grow as a company? Well, then I would say then you probably want to think about potentially increasing your marketing budget. Now, that's not to say advertising budget. I'm saying your marketing budget, making sure you understand who the customers are and how to reach them.
Correct.
Now, along those same lines is, I'm a big fan of leaning into, yes, the traditional marketing methodologies, but to say you just go digital today and everything's going to be solved, come on, we're all overdone with that at this point. I think there's still a place with it. I think there's some table stakes that you need to do. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I'm a big fan of more PR related type engagement.
Yeah.
Actually do something that gets the news interested in you and gets word out there.
Right.
I think there's tremendous opportunity with that. I see that all the time with businesses in Colorado, that there's so much more to grab hold of even being a part of a bigger movement and having your organization be a part of that. That's going to get you PR. And for the most part, there's an element to be said with PR that it can be free. versus actually paying for advertising. Now, the trade-off is advertising, you control the message.
That's correct.
PR, you don't.
That's right.
And so you just got to ask yourself, are you comfortable with that mindset? But that's what I try to lean into with clients that I'm privileged to work with in my advisory work is how are you engaging with media? How are you engaging with getting things written about you, getting topics addressed about you? Are you becoming a thought leader? Everybody can be a thought leader in some way, shape, or form with their business. Have you explored that? Have you looked at doing that?
Yeah.
Because that's when you can get, for lack of a better way to put it, attention.
Yeah.
And attention can drive business.
It can, especially if they see the message that you're putting out is authentic, relatable, addresses pain points or concerns or obstacles that business is facing. You know, a lot of people just fly over this and they say just carpet bomb the universe with advertising or whatever. And I've seen businesses do that and succeed, and I've seen most of them not do so well just with that strategy or digital or whatever. Help us break down the wall between the director of sales and the director of marketing. And what are some of the conversations they need to be having? Because like you said, quarter end, all right, folks, let's go out there and lean in on our customers a little bit, see if we can do some add-on sales and bump our numbers. I get that. And that's a prudent business exercise. However, if they're more strategic and intentional about it before we get to the end of the quarter, then sales and marketing are already on page. The message is more clear and refined. Unpack that a little bit.
I think it's valuable to first take a step back and say, how do marketing and sales interact? How do they structurally consist? Most would agree that sales is a component of marketing. Now, there are different people that'll disagree with that. And there's a lot of businesses out there that are extremely sales driven and view marketing sometimes as an afterthought. But at its core, marketing is figuring out who your customers are and how to go after them. And then the actual transacting of the sale, and most of my experience is business to business sales. Most of those transactions, then that's going to be handled by your sales people. Or your sales infrastructure, whatever that is. So if you see what I'm saying with that, sales is a component of marketing.
Agreed.
Now, I will also tell you that sometimes the relationship between the two can be harmonious and nice, and sometimes it's
very contentious.
Not.
Yes.
When you're a seller and you're out there talking to customers and you have, for example, 10 customers say to you, boy, if your product did this, I'd buy these tomorrow. And you take that back ultimately to your marketing folks, which will then communicate with product development about what needs to be done. But if you're turned down, you're not liking marketing right now.
That's right.
You're unhappy.
Yeah.
And for good reason. That's fair. And you're meant to be in the front lines. That's what you are as a salesperson. You're out there interacting, listening to customers. The most successful companies I have been a part of, and I've been privileged to be a part of the fastest growing company in the world, the most valuable company in the world, and the most desired to work for company in the world. All of those, within a certain latitude, listen to their salespeople. Now, that's not always to say that that's always the right thing to do, because you need to temper that. But there is something to be said about make sure you're actually listening to what customers are saying, not just what you think.
Right.
But marketing plays a critical role of processing and consuming that information and then finding a way to disseminate that to finance, to production, to manufacturing, to make sure that there's a blend and a balance occurring.
Well, this allows organizations to pivot down at the product level, right? Or the service deliverable mechanisms, because a lot of them are static. They just, here's a box, it goes here. That agility and that input mechanism from the customer base to be able to say and translate to manufacturing, to development, to product, product development itself, that's a big deal. We did that well in a couple of software companies I worked with. There are industries that do it exceptionally well, like the big brands that we could all name right here, who have really shifted themselves well. But small businesses, and pretty much that's all of Southern Colorado is small business as far as the SBA is concerned. So under 500 employees, this is the majority of your audience right now, Paul. So again, help them understand first the vetting, then the apparatus that needs to be in place as it relates to how they need to communicate with finance, sales, development, all that stuff.
So thanks for giving more focus to that, because it's my heartfelt reason to want to help businesses in this area. And so, yes, we're not dealing with the big theoretical giant conglomerates kind of thing.
Right.
So in that context, you have to focus your marketing dollar. That's one thing that I would say. You can't go after everybody. The moment you go after everybody, you're trying to boil the ocean. So especially those that are new businesses or starting out, find that low-hanging fruit. Find that person that just sees who you are and understands what you're doing, and that's what I want. And that's also you figuring out what is the problem you're solving. You have to start there. Why are we building this? What are we doing? What issue are we addressing here? And when you know that, who's feeling that issue the most? Go after that party and keep trying. I will say this. There's this expression of analysis paralysis. Now, one of the classes I teach is marketing research. So you wouldn't think I'd be sitting here saying analysis paralysis, but I am, because we can suffer from that a lot of times. You need to decide and try and then react. Because when you try, when you actually have motion happen, you're going to get feedback. And then you pivot, and then you pivot. Now, of course, there's a financial reality if you can only pivot so much. That's why you need to take your time and make sure you're really satisfying a true need. And if you are, and if you're paying attention to what you're seeing, and if you're engaging with clients in I liked how you said it, a genuine, authentic way, you're going to succeed. I will challenge that for almost any business. You find a real problem, you're solving that problem, and you're doing it in a way that is providing a greater return than the cost, you're going to succeed. It's just a matter then of you being tenacious to get that word out there.
That's interesting. I love this conversation, folks, and I hope you're extracting some pearls of wisdom from Paul Yankey. He's an author, speaker, subject matter expert in the realm of marketing and all the fundamental disciplines underneath that. We're both Peter Drucker fans, who's the godfather of marketing in many camps. But I just appreciate, the honesty in the communication about this, because I think people think it's either a creative thing or it's a sales thing or whatever. And then they're locked in with this person that may not understand a broader conversation that they could be having, that they have permission to have with finance, product development, and sales, as well as founders who are driving new industry sectors into existence, which is what you're very familiar with out in Silicon Valley. So anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about this book, but then we'll finalize some of this conversation around the role of a feasibility study. I'm always fascinated by this, where a restaurant pops up or where a retail store pops up, and why it ended up there, and maybe some of the pitfalls you can avoid when we come back.
It isn't easy to learn every turn, to trust instinct over doubt, to keep control on the edge. It isn't easy to stare down history. Whoever said we wanted easy? We came for glory. The Broadmoor Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, presented by Gran Turismo. 156 turns to glory. Be there when we chase it.
Leonard Skinnard. Live. Saturday, September 19th, Ford Amphitheater. With special guest 38 Special. On sale Friday, 10 a.m. at leonardskinnard.com. Leonard Skinnard. Live. Produced by AEG Presents.
Picnic Basket Catering Collective. Call or find us online.
Pain doesn't just announce itself, it changes how you move. And when movement changes, everything else follows. That's when experience and coordination matters most. Dr. Craig Yeager, orthopedic sports medicine surgeon here. At Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, board-certified, fellowship-trained specialists treat the full orthopedic picture from head to toe. With our walk-in express care, advanced MRI and CT imaging, and physical therapy at 2 full-service locations, your care stays connected. Schedule today. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, because movement isn't optional, it's personal.
One thing I can guarantee you never thought about as a small business owner: podcasts are way more important than you realize. One 30-minute podcast session could create over 50 pieces of content across all your platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Reels, Stories, Shorts. Transcribe that podcast. Now you got newsletters, blog posts, client resources, website copy, and that's all from one conversation, potentially solving all your visibility issues. Top of mind beats top of skill. And it's not even close. You show up ready for a conversation, and we handle literally everything else. That's months of content, visibility solved, and stress gone. Book your first session at treehousecw.com.
All right, we're back here, fourth quarter, Business Digest Radio. I'm hanging out with Paul Yankey, who is a author, speaker, and instructor at the University of Colorado Springs. But he's also a consultant and is been hired by a lot of agencies and organizations in the region and across the country to where he goes in and helps facilitate these material discussions on all things marketing. So appreciate you being here, Paul.
Thank you, Dirk.
I'm glad you're here. I know you do a lot of outside work. Companies hire you to come in and kind of evaluate everything that's going on. What are some other parts of the services you offer outside the classroom and writing books?
Sure. Well, when I go back to one of my earlier statements about how it's rarely that people don't know what to do, it's that they don't know who they are. And so I like to really make a real point of digging into that with people. There's some methodologies of helping to encourage that and to bring that out, so that my notion, if you will, is to take confusion and to turn it into clarity, and then clarity turns into action. That's what I do with organizations and with people.
That's powerful there. Yeah.
I'm privileged to work with a lot of senior leaders right now, and I listen. I listen. And I'm learning more and more that people are often not listened to. And there's a lot that comes out when you listen.
That is very true. Because a lot of marketing folks, sales folks, agencies, they'll come in and tell you what they know. But the most important thing I want to hear as a business owner is, what do you know about my customers? What do you know about what we're capable of doing?
We talked about that a little bit. And one thing I really wanted to drive home: do not be afraid to hold your marketing people, call that internal or external, accountable.
Yeah.
In fact, they necessarily need to have that. That's going to help them do a better job. If we just buy into grandiose statements, and that may happen, and they did this many impressions or what have you, that's fine, but it needs to hit the bottom line.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage always there to be a sanity test on, what is this actually doing for us?
And what's the frequency of that conversation?
Okay. I'm a little different thinking. I'm thinking daily, if not hourly.
Okay.
Now, some people would say weekly or monthly. No, not today.
Okay.
No. There needs to be things that are in place that you're always asking, is this the right path to go down? Now, sure, there might be a plan, a strategic directive that you're going with, but someone needs to be checking in to make sure this is happening.
And evaluate it constantly. How sales is responding, not just the sales team, but the actual inbound top line.
You know, that's interesting that you say that, because you can create activity. And that's fine. You can even get people calling in, but is it then translating into actual sales?
Right.
And that can reveal other issues, possibly. Maybe your salespeople need to have some additional training, or they need to make sure they're adjusting their focus or their intention. I will tell you, today, people know, and some of this starts to segue into the book that I wrote. People today, they know when you actually care for them or you're actually just looking for the sale.
Right.
I think we have call it your spidey sense, call it whatever. You can pick it up very quickly now. Yeah. And so when I work with companies and sometimes talking to them about this idea of bringing more care into their practice or a sense of wanting to do good for their customers, it's not uncommon. I'll have a senior leader or the owner or the president take me aside and kind of do well, Paul, what do we really need to do this? And I realized after a while, I kind of look at her or him and I say, well, the first thing is you actually need to care. And that's where it starts from. Yeah. That's your foundation. Yeah. And I'm very principled on that.
That's
you need
the human connection.
It's the human connection, but it's also what is your intention? Intention's huge. It's a word I live by. What is your intention in engaging with those that you serve? So, and it's going to have the greatest long-term success for you is the bottom line.
Yeah.
Proven.
No question about it. Well, I appreciate that. And now with the infusion of AI in all things, I know there's a lot of shortcuts being taken by sales, marketing, research firms, a lot of shortcuts. Just your cursory thoughts, because that's a whole other interview.
Sure.
But your cursory thoughts on the role of AI as that marketing person in charge of messaging, branding, positioning, all those key components.
AI is an extraordinary tool. It's phenomenal. You still have judgment. AI is an extraordinary tool. You still have judgment.
Excellent. That's a good punch because a lot of folks use it as the solution.
That's right.
Right. And they're not discerning. Okay. Critical thinking still comes into this at this stage anyway.
And there's a practice and a methodology of how to do that and how not to do that. And we talk about that a lot.
Something I teased out in the third quarter was the role of a feasibility study and really doing your homework before you launch your business, or if you're pivoting in your business. Okay. So you can be a well-established business organization, service provider, or product solution, and you may need to pivot because the universe around you has pivoted. The customer sentiment has dwindled in this area and risen on this area. And I'll help us understand the role of a feasibility study, how a marketing professional should drive that conversation, or should they, and in conjunction with who?
Well, this gets a lot into marketing research, okay? And I would make the statement that you are making a mistake if you're not doing it. Okay. This idea of just saying, oh, hey, I want to open up an ice cream shop and I'm going to throw it up here and get it going and hope for the best.
Right.
Okay. You can do that. And you know what? If you're someone who's very successful and has a big bank account, go for it. Have fun. But that's not how you run a business.
That's right.
So there is a business component to this where you need to do the research. There's a lot of publicly available information or information that you can find about even demographics of an area, how many people that are in that area that are you're servicing. But here's where I come down to it. We talk about that a lot, and there's so much data that you can process and consume, and that's valuable, okay? But go there and ask people, if I were to set up an ice cream shop here, would you buy ice cream? And here's the key thing. This is a strong statement to make, but shut up and listen.
Yes, it is, but it's accurate.
And hear what they tell you, and you need to get a volume of that. So you can't just do an isolated case scenario, but you need to go there and you need to feel it and you need to understand. So numbers speak a lot. Definitely you see an intersection and it shows that it has this many cars going by every day. But have you actually gone there yourself and looked at it? And maybe it's a huge number, but you realize that, but there's no way for anybody to ever pull in to the business for whatever reason might be the case. So, there is a whole science to that. We don't have time to get all into the components of that today, but you need to be doing the homework. You need to be doing the research before you make a step out. And if you're thinking of pivoting as a business, okay, why? Is that just something you want to do? Okay, but as long as you are honest about it, or are you responding to the market? My hope is you're responding to the market because you are running a business and there's people that are relying on that for their incomes and those type things. But you need to be able to ask yourself, why are we pivoting? And are we pivoting to how people, customers want us to pivot? Don't just assume. You know what they say about assume. We don't need
yes,
it. So
I do.
And I think that's oftentimes something that can come up in marketing is you make assumptions. I would say it different. You maybe make a thesis and then you want to prove it and vet it out. And you're constantly doing that. You asked before how to check in. Always, because you're always challenging your own assumption, if you will, your own thesis. Are you accurate? And if not, you need to adjust. So, and we live in a day of where data can be so real time, you don't have to wait the traditional proverbial quarter anymore. You can know very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate a lot of this. And like you said, Paul, there's deeper dives that we could do in almost any aspect of this conversation. And that's why I want to drive people to yankeymethod.com or paulyankey.com. And you've seen the flag on the bottom third of the screen here, but it's Yankey, Yankey method.com, and check it out. If you're a business organization of any size, whether you're starting up, maybe it's an early stage company, stage 2, or you're downstream quite a bit, and maybe you're a tier 1 contractor and you're trying to understand how to better do business with the government, whatever it is, or you're thinking of opening that ice cream shop. Give Paul Yankey a call, check out his website. And now I want to give you a little bit of time to talk about this, the counterintuitive truth inside free. Okay. That was an interesting statement for me to read on your notes here. Tell us about that statement, and then tell us about this great book.
30 years in industry with some of the most successful companies, and seeing, I referenced it before, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And by the way, I experienced good, bad, and ugly of the selling process. And I wish, Dirk, I could tell you that I always chose the good path. I'm not here to say that.
Yeah.
I had to do at times what I had to do to make things happen. We all have that element of needing to put food on the table.
Of course.
And it is a very real thing to have. I've had a quota over my head for 30 years. There's a toll to that not everybody understands.
True.
And it can weigh on you after some time. And I've been at the highest levels. I was the salesperson of the year for Dell. And that's an accolade that I don't just lightly say. That was a big accomplishment.
That's a huge accomplishment.
And
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I bring that up and I've had other awards that I've won. I've been on stage many times and been able to experience those benefits. But it has its toll. And also when things are not going well, there's not a lot of loyalty that can exist. I've sadly seen that happen a lot with different people.
What have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? There's a very big component to that. So through all of that, I found myself, when the last startup I was at sold about 4.5 years ago, I had an opportunity to stop and think, okay, I want to make a real meaningful impact. That's some of what brought me back to the university. That's what got me a lot involved with our city's suicide prevention efforts and having an involvement with things that were a lot more tangible and I felt were going to have a lasting and evergreen impact. And one of the things that came out of that was writing this book free. Now, it's interesting. The essence of the book is, as the name implies, being free, not having to sell to someone in a way that's unnatural or a way that goes against your ethical code, but being able to engage with them out of a spirit of, I'll say it, although it's not very common in business, but of love and of doing good for that person. And then with that, being free to present the full aspect of what you're offering to them. And in turn, you're not only going to develop more trust with that customer, you're going to feel better about yourself and you're going to feel better about the company that you're a part of. So I encourage anybody to make sure that they're going down a path of selling from a free place of mind. And that's a lot of the essence of the book. I share stories in there. Some of them, they're hard for me to write because I share things that I'm not always the most proud of. But I do tell stories of what happens and how different tactics can be utilized, some not very attractive. And it's important to know that. And I think it's a valuable book for anybody going into business, certainly in the selling field, but also just in life in general.
Very good. Well, I appreciate that authenticity. And I think most business owners are pragmatic enough to know that there's a lot of bobbing and weaving in there. When you're building your business and you're trying to put food on the table, as you said, or if you're a player on the team and you've got that pressure above you that says, this is what I've got to achieve, my quota. And that drives a lot of decisions, but we always have the opportunity to make the right decision. And then there's sometimes the ones we make that are, I could have done better. Yeah. So
that is one of my heart methods, though, is to make sure that I'm encouraging people to choose the right method, choose the right path.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to talk to you. We could probably spend another 2 or 3 shows talking about the fundamentals and the basics, but I want to encourage people to check out this book. Where can they grab this, Paul? This book?
It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
You can look up under my name or the book Free, The Only Way to Sell.
Very good. Paul Yankey has been hanging out with us, and hopefully if you missed any portion of this, you'll go back on the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, or Apple, or watch us on YouTube, and you can hear the whole interview in the context of some of the discussion threads we've had here today. It's been a privilege again, sir. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Dirk. It's been a privilege to be with you.
All right, brother. Well, folks, vote. It's best in business season throughout the rest of this summer into August, when we'll tally everything up, and then in September we'll have a party. Vote socodigest.com, and there's 90 categories of businesses in there, folks. So something for everybody, including those Community Choice Awards. We'll see you next week when we discuss, have a conversation around a group called Reclaiming Civility. That's going to be a fun conversation. See you next time.
You've been listening to Business Digest Radio, Colorado's source for business, workforce, and economic development news. Find us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and at socodigest.com. To be featured on the show, email info@coloradomediagroup.com.